Welcome back as we're moving along in Module 4. We are on Topic 1, Lesson 1, Activity 5, page 537 in your text. We are still working with the same habits of mind, and we are moving on to comparing and ordering rational numbers. We are, this time in this activity, going to talk about money and profits and losses. So this says Helen and Grace started a company called Top Notch. The table shown represents their first 10 weeks of operation. A number in parentheses represents a loss for the week. Amounts that are not in parentheses represent a profit for the week. That's very common practice. Even in my bank, if I go online and look at my online bank statement, any amount of money that comes out of my account is shown in red with parentheses around it. So again, that's very common. You'll continue to see that throughout your life. Imagine that math in everyday life. Okay, so week 1 had a profit of $159. So week 2 has 201. But then underneath, and it's in parentheses, so they lost it. Underneath here, then it says positive or negative number. So what they're wanting us to do is just to write whether this represents a positive number or a negative number and what the value is. So this one represents a positive $159. When it's in red, it's a negative, so a loss, negative 201. This one's in black, so it's a positive. Again, remember, I don't have to put the positive sign. If there's nothing there, it just automatically assumes positive. We have a negative 456. You go ahead and finish the rest of that, please. Hit pause if you need to. Okay, and go ahead and check your numbers with mine. So by the end of week 2, was there a profit or a loss? So a profit is when you gain money. Profits are an increase in money. A loss is when it's a decrease. You don't have the money. It is less than what you had previously. And in business, a loss is really below zero. Or for some businesses, it would be not even below zero, but below their operating cost. So let's say that a business, let's say this top-notch business spends $100 um, for whatever it is that they're doing here in Top Notch. I don't know what it is, but let's say it's $100 to operate for an hour. By the time they pay employees, they pay the portion of rent that that hour would cover for the building. They pay all of their utilities, their gas, their electric, their water, and all of that. Let's say an hour has a $100 operating expense, but in that hour that they were open, they only made $90. They only sold $90 worth of product over and above what they had paid. So that would be a loss. Even though they brought in $90, it cost them $100 to be open during that hour. So that would have been a loss of $10. And that's really how businesses function. You can't always just look at the amount of money that they're taking in. You need to know what their operating costs are during that time period as well. Okay, so let's move on here. Number 1, use the table and number line to answer each question. Write each profit or loss as a positive or negative number and then plot the number on the number line. So we already wrote that. And then we're going to plot it on the number line. So 159 as a positive. So our intervals here, so we have 0, 50, a blank, and then 150. So we must be going up by 50. So 100, 150, 200, 250, 300. So 159 is going to be just slightly more than halfway, so about right here. 159, and we just need to put a dot actually, or a line. Negative 201. So this is negative 100, negative 150, negative 200, negative 250, negative 300, negative 350, negative 400, negative 450, negative 500. Please pause and fill that out so that we can continue then. Okay, negative 201 is going to be just beyond the 200. It's not on this side towards the 0. Remember, if we turned this, if we turn this into a vertical, it would go up and down like this. But let's just pretend for just a moment that we don't have any negative signs and we looked at it like this. Pretend there aren't any negatives. 201 would be between the 200 and the 250. So even when it is negative, 201 still falls between the 200 and the 250. It just happens to be on the negative side of the number line, so it's right here. 231 and a positive is about here. You go ahead and hit pause and please finish this. And I'm going to do the same. Negative 456 will be about here. Negative 156 is about here. Negative 12. Oh, that's just a little bit past the 0. 281 about here. 175. So this is going to be the 175 because that's in the middle of 150 and 200. So my 159 needs to be down here a little bit. You see how as I kept going, I reflected on my thinking and thought, oh, that doesn't seem right because 175 needs to be here. And then I made an adjustment. It's okay to do that. It's okay to make mistakes in math and to rethink and readjust and rewrite it. It's fine. That's how we grow as mathematicians. Okay, so then 192 will be close to the 200, greater than the 175. And then 213. Let's see, what did this dot represent? This one was 231. So the 213 is going to be in here. Okay, and there we are. It says, what does 0 represent in this situation? So 0 is when Helen and Grace break even. And I don't know if you know what that phrase means. It's good to learn that. A break even point, it's 2 words. It means that there's no profit, but there's no loss either. Okay, in which week did the company have the greatest profit? So which number is the greatest? Which one's the highest up on the number line that we plotted? Let's see, so it would be right here between the 250 and the 300. So that's going to be the 281, which is week 7. Because it says in which week, so week 7, and I'm just going to write $281. And what about the greatest loss? So that's going to be the one furthest to the left. As we go down here, the losses become more significant. Like you're losing more and more and more money. So the greatest loss kind of sounds like an oxymoron, like a difference of words here. Loss seems negative, greatest seems higher, but more negative would be the negative 456 in week 4. Actually, let me put the dollar sign here. Negative $456. So let me just ask you, by week 2, was there a profit or a loss? Right, so there was a loss by week 2. Okay. Number 2, for each pair of weeks, write an inequality statement to compare the positive and negative numbers. So in week 1, that amount was $159 and it's positive, and week 5 was negative 156. So we need to put the inequality sign right here. And again, we have to compare when reading left to right. So 159 is here and negative 156 is here. So we are looking at the 159 compared to the negative 156. So the 159 is higher up on the number line, so it is greater than. So the opening is that way. I'm going to erase this little blank that I drew for us to write it on, because then it looked like a greater than or equal to, and it's just greater than. Okay, week 4 had negative 456. Well, week 6 was negative 12. Okay, so these are both negative. So which one is more negative? Which one will be less than the other? We're comparing negative 456 to negative 12. So how do we want to think about this? So if I look at 456 on the number line, that's right here, and the negative 12 was up here. Remember, the further right on the number line, the greater the number. The further left, the less the number. So the 456 is further left, the negative 456 rather. So that should be less than, or if I think about it this way, the negative 12 is further right, so it's greater than the negative 456. So it goes this way. Negative 456 is less than negative 12. If I just read it backwards, negative 12 is greater than negative 456. So that is true as well. All right, and then it says interpret the statement in context. So what do these statements mean? We have the inequalities, but what do they mean? So week 1, profit of 159, and week 5, it was negative 156. So Helen and Grace, I'm just going to put H and G, and you can do that as well, had a profit of $159 at the end of week 1. They probably thought they were doing pretty good. They at least had a profit at the end of their first week. But a loss we're just going to say a loss at the end of week 5. Negative 456 and negative 12. So let's see, Helen and Grace. Let's compare those. So they lost more money here, correct? It's more negative. So we can say they had a greater loss during week 4. I guess it's at the end of week 4. We better put that. At the end of week 4. Than the loss they had at the end of week 6. So they had a loss in both weeks, but they had a bigger loss during week 4. Oh my goodness. So I didn't even have that in the viewpoint of the camera at all. So I guess you will have to kind of pause and get that written down. My apologies. Sorry about that. I'm not going to start the recording over because I'm already 15 minutes into this. So you can pause and we're going to move on. Okay, continuing with activity 5 here on the back, it says you can compare different types of numbers by plotting the numbers on a number line. Use the number line to answer each question. Letter A, it wants us to plot those numbers on the number line. You should be able to do this by now on your own. So -6 2/3. So that number, 6 2/3, comes between 5 and 6. So therefore, a -6 2/3 comes between a -5 and a -10. So it's going to be, I don't know, probably about here. So there's the -6 2/3. -20 is right here. 0 is easy, that's right here. 10 5/100, or 10 1/2. It's going up by 5, so 10 1/2 is going to be relatively close. -17 1/2. 17 1/2 comes between 15 and 20, even on the negative side. So that'll be about in here. Okay, and then we have -7 98/100. If we were thinking money, this would be -$7.98. If this was -$5, -10. 798 falls between the 5 and 10 if we're talking about money, and even just in negative numbers in general. So halfway through will be the 750, so it'll be about right there is the -7 98/100. And we have the number 12. This was 10 1/2, so 12 is going to be over just a little bit further. And again, these number lines aren't very detailed, so we just need to get our best estimate. -3. 3 comes between 0 and 5, so -3 comes between 0 and -5. So it's going to be about here. And then -13 comes between the -10 and the -15. That'll be about here. Letter B, which of the numbers has the least value and how do you know? Well, the least value is going to be the one that's the furthest left. And that's how I know what the more left a spot is on a number line, the lower the value. So -20, because it is farthest left on the number line. Easy as that. Which of the numbers has a greater value and how do you know? So if the lesser value is all the way to the left, the greater value is all the way to the right. So that would leave us with, that's right, 12, because it is farthest right on the number line. So ask yourself, it says, how do you know which rational number is greater? By looking at the number line. Again, whatever's on the right of something else is greater than anything that's to the left of it. So this spot here, which was negative, or I'm sorry, it was a positive 10.5, it is greater than every single thing here. The only thing that -17 1/2 is greater is the -20. Now it says to order the numbers from least to greatest. So go ahead and pause and you do that, please. Okay, I had paused as well. I took a moment and answered it myself. Here are the answers. So you can pause again to double check your work. Number 4, plot each rational number on the number line, then insert a greater than, less than, or equals symbol to each number sentence to make each number sentence true. So -10.25, or 10 25/100, and a -15 2/3. So the 10 25/100, if we thought about it as money, it would be $10.25. 10.25 comes between 10 and 15, so that's going to be about in here. But 15 and 2/3, if I thought about it on the other side, 15 would come between 15 and 20, or the 15 and 2/3 would come between 15 and 20. So the negative 15 and 2/3 comes between the negative 15 and the negative 20. So on this side somewhere. So reading left to right, we're looking at this dot compared to this. This one is further to the right. So this is the greater value. So this is greater than. Letter B, we have negative 17 and negative 17. That one is pretty easy. You are right, it is equal to. Letter C, 5 and 2/3 and negative 8 and 28/100. So 5 and 2/3 and negative 8. Now, in this one, we had two negative numbers. So we had to really kind of look at the number line to figure out which one was greater than, which one was less. Here they were both negative and they were the same number, so it was equal. Here we have one that has a positive value and one that has a negative value. So the positive value is always going to be greater than that negative value. Is there ever going to be a time that a positive number is less than a negative number? No, certainly not.